I think I'm even more nervous now because I think we've made every single one of those mistakes that Bobby and Mike just talked about, so don't judge us too harshly. But today what we're going to talk about is what happens when a large corporation, and in this case Heineken, chooses to do things differently and build a product like a startup. So firstly, just to introduce ourselves. I'm Alanna. I work at a digital agency in Edinburgh, X-Design, the one that Russell talked about earlier on. We were contracted by Heineken at the end of 2019 to work on their product idea.
I'm Duncan Forbes. I work with Heineken, the on-trade e-commerce team, and I'm product owner there. Just to give you an understanding of what the on-trade, I'm sure many of you know, but basically on-trade we're focused on our kind of 3,000 owned pubs, so supplying and trading with them, and then over 10,000 independent IFT pubs. So that's just pubs that want to buy product from us. And those customers, they kind of range from your inner city style bar through to stadiums, right through to kind of working men's clubs. So it's a big, broad range of customers. They're generally pretty traditional as well. I'd say that, you know, an indicator would be that, you know, around about 70% of them are still browsing and shopping on desktop. But basically, now that I've covered that, I want to take you back to late 2018, where we went to our cheesily named Beers, Ideas and Volunteers session, which is a kind of, it's an internal ideation session where you can kind of pitch business problems and a number of people can kind of volunteer to solve those problems. So we were going to be proposing onboarding, and like the on-trade piece, I need to give you some background on what onboarding is for Heineken. But basically onboarding is signing up independent free trade pubs that want to buy from us. That sounds pretty simple, but it's basically been a 20-year business problem. It covers, it goes across 8 different departments, including 3 third-party contractors. The whole process can take anywhere between 1 to 6 weeks, depending on the kind of complexity of the customer and what we're installing for them. No one owns the end-to-end process, so unfortunately when we set out on this, there was no kind of guru that we could go to give us all the answers. And the most important thing really is it's the lowest scoring in terms of customer experience across our whole relationship with our customers. And we lose a significant number of prospects during that onboarding journey. It's also extremely manual at the moment. You've got sales reps still using notes, black books. They're, you know, filling things out on Excel spreadsheets or handwritten on printed out PDF documents. So basically, we went to Beers, Ideas and Volunteers, remember? And we basically asked them, we suggested this problem, and we said, look, how could we use technology to kind of streamline this process, to improve this entire process? And you know, it was a great session, but obviously we immediately started jumping on things like we were going to be like Monzo, like Starling Bank, like Airbnb, and we were going to create the equivalent for Heineken, where we were going to like sign people up on this slick app, and they were going to log in and do all this stuff themselves, and they were going to love this. But the reality is that Heineken is not that type of business, really. It's we're much more like a kind of utility company. You know, there's a number of onerous and physical tasks that need to happen in the background, and the process can't really be fast-tracked. But what we came away from there, apart from like an absolutely massive spidergram that we wheeled around the business for a number of weeks, was a clear ambition, which was that we wanted to create a tool that would streamline the process, so taking a customer from initial inquiry right through to pouring the first pint. But most importantly, we came out with a mandate to work differently. As I said, or Alanna alluded to before, that we're a fairly traditional organization, and our leadership team was really keen to work differently. So that meant we were given the freedom to form a kind of cross-functional team made up of people that weren't necessarily subject matter experts, but they were kind of, I don't know, recruited on attitude, you'd say. We used to consider ourselves a kind of terrorist cell within the organization. We were we were obviously had the freedom to work with all those 8 departments that I told you about, but keep them at arm's length so that we didn't have these unwieldy meetings that would grind the project to a halt. We knew we had the confidence of the leadership team, so we knew we were safe to make mistakes and we wouldn't get binned if we did. And I think it was mistake number 1, but we wanted to make a prototype. and I think when we decided that we wanted to go ahead and take the spidergram, put it into some kind of prototype, we wanted the freedom to choose the agency that we wanted to work with, so somebody that would be a good fit for us. Obviously, we've got rostered agencies, so we were given the ability to go and choose an agency, and that's when we engaged with X-Design.
Cool. So after the initial excitement of us working with Heineken, I started to have a few concerns. Heineken were very focused on allowing customers to self-onboard, but there wasn't a lot of research into why that was. I don't really think that any of us understood the scope of the problem at that point. And despite Heineken's commitment to work in a different way, there was still a bit of focus on what the business was expecting, what stakeholders wanted, what would sold to the business. So a lot of our discovery sessions were led with the business is expecting X, we've sold stakeholders Y, and that could be a challenge at times. But we built a prototype. That was what we was contracted to do. This was going to be the proof of concept that Heineken wanted for the business, but more importantly for us as an agency, it was a tool that we could use to take out to customers and to users and test to make sure that we were building the right thing. So our goal, like Duncan said, it was to digitize the paper application forms and allow customers to sign up themselves end-to-end online. Pretty easy. We've built loads of web forms in the past. I wasn't worried. We made some mistakes. I made some mistakes. As a product owner in an agency, anybody who works in an agency might know this, you walk a fine line between courting the client and challenging the client. So I don't think I did a good enough job in highlighting my reservations early on in the project, enough to be able to challenge and make a difference. And I think like my manager at the time, Charlotte, she said to me, it's like you're waiting for somebody to tell you what to do. And that stuck with me because I was waiting for somebody to tell me what to do. And this is where the user testing came in. A second mistake that we made, this prototype, it was over-gilded, too engineered. It had animations and transitions and illustrations. We hadn't even really understood the scope of the problem at this point. It was gorgeous. We loved it. We had a working prototype. Yay. We were ready to test with users. I got the usability script together. We invited some of the Heineken employees, some of the people that had helped us in the initial discovery sessions to come into the office. We're based in Dean Village. We'd set up a makeshift test lab in one of the meeting rooms. We were recording users, their interactions with the prototypes and the conversations that they were having with my colleague Paige, who facilitated the session. Paige is over there, give her a little wave later. And the reason that we asked Paige to facilitate those usability sessions is to make sure that we was removing any bias that me and Duncan had from this process. We was trying to remove ourselves from it. We were sat in an observation room next door, and we were watching a live stream of these users struggling to use a prototype that we'd poured our heart and soul into over however many weeks. And I don't know who was more nervous that day, me or Duncan. I'm going to say me.
Yeah, there was a lot of head rubbing, but that's how I lost my hair, by the way. I mean, it's funny because at this stage, when we completed the prototype, I was pretty sure that we'd nailed it, you know, and there wasn't champagne corks popping in Heineken, but there was definitely a lot of backslapping and you know, showcasing it around the business. But when we showed it to the Heineken staff, and particularly the frontline sales team, they pretty much hated it. They thought it was completely laughable that customers would want to fill out all of this information online and do this. You know, there's a significant amount of data that we need to capture. They also thought that basically that customers wouldn't be willing to share any sensitive data, that would have to be done face to face. And then the other departments, the 8 departments I mentioned, they thought our ideas of third-party integration and automation were maybe a little bit comedy as well. But I'd say we were probably, well, certainly, I think I was definitely a little bit arrogant at this point, where we just, or defensive maybe is the right word, where we thought that they wrongly saw this as some kind of threat. And I think on a number of occasions, I think we clocked up about 4 or 5, or Paige did, where they said, we're not turkeys voting for Christmas. So, but what we did was we then took that to customers to see whether they backed it up.
Yeah, so we were interested in customers. We'd built this product for them, really. So Duncan had found a few customers that were willing to speak to us. We did a pilgrimage to the pubs, which was great. Paige and I, the same user testing setup, the same usability tasks, the same interview, just a different setting. And this is where the surprise came, the thing that we really weren't expecting. They didn't like it either. They thought the application forms were too long. In fact, I don't think if Paige was not sat there, I think they would have just given up. They would have stopped. They actually missed the human interaction. They wanted to speak to somebody. The amount of times we got told, I'd just pick up the phone and speak to my sales rep, Jimmy, who I'm a pal with. He's been my sales rep for 5 years. Whoever knew that was a thing in the industry, that people would still want to speak to somebody over the phone rather than being able to sign up online themselves. So some things did test well. They liked all of our animations, our transitions, our nice iconography that we'd put in. So, we did something right. Yep. But it did leave us with a bit of a problem. Where do we go from here? This whole product is around this idea and concept of allowing customers to self-onboard. So what do we do?
Yeah. So all that backslapping was gone now. And I had the absolute fear that we were about to build a product that basically no one would use. So, we'd build it, and then, 5 people would be willing to fill out the forms online. So there was definitely a realization that we were going down the wrong road, wrong product, wrong user. That customers definitely either weren't interested or weren't ready for self-onboarding like this. But it was clear that that there was a direct link between improving the frontline sales experience in bar with the customer, and that would automatically improve the customer experience. So what we needed to do, we needed to build something that basically allowed the frontline sales team to be able to onboard as many customers as possible through this slick tool, and then allow us to manage them behind the scenes. And that we realized that the customers, really all they wanted to know about was, what am I doing, and when's it happening, and when are you delivering stuff? But that left me with a feeling slightly awkward. I mean, obviously we'd been given this mandate for change, but it's in an organization like Heineken, you're having to showcase things to secure funding down the line, and to keep the momentum of the project going. So we touted this prototype around the business, and that had wedded people to the kind of self-onboarding dream. So this was really a test of Heineken's commitment to this new way of working. So I had to go back to the business and basically explain this kind of U-turn. But the really powerful tool that we put in front of the powerful piece was the work that XDesign had done on the customer testing, where we had video footage of sales reps basically telling us it wasn't going to work, and then customers saying there was no chance they were going to use it. So that was very powerful, and no one was going to argue with that. And I think there's probably an acknowledgement within the leadership team as well that in the past we might have paid a bit of lip service to the customer experience piece, and maybe have rolled out with this with it rather than just building a prototype. We would have gone out and just cracked on.
Yeah. So after the soul searching and the wargaming and the difficult conversations, more for Duncan than for me, admittedly. Sorry, Duncan. We knew that we had to listen to our customers. There was just no other choice for us. We changed tact. We decided we'd build a tool for the sales reps, would improve efficiency overall, and hopefully that would impact on the customer experience. So it was kind of still the same problem that we were trying to solve, just a different perspective that we had to adopt because of these user testing findings. So listening to the feedback from customers, like Duncan said, the things that worked well, being alerted and notified when things are happening, we kept all that. We kept the good bits, and we got rid of all of the onerous tasks that didn't test well. And by focusing on the product and the user problem and making sure we was building the right thing, we managed to build this product in 7 sprints. So anybody who doesn't work in sprints, that's 14 weeks. We launched in January, and we'll be rolling out nationally in May. So it's a huge success. We managed to complete the Heineken mandate, albeit a very twisty, turny path.
Yeah, it was over.
So what did we learn? Oh, look, it's a blank slide. We learned, I think, first and foremost, we're not Monzo. Just because you're trying to build a product like a startup doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. That's not an automatic road to easy success. Yeah, sure, there's merits to working the way that these companies do, and we try and take them on board. This one's really lame, but I'm going to say it because it's true. Nurture your working relationships. And in particular for me, one of the takeaways that I had was to make sure that I have the difficult conversations early. Make sure you do it early, get it out of the way. Otherwise, it can be a problem later down the line.
And so, yeah, I agree with all of that. And from Heineken's perspective, I think that we view this whole experience as a massive success. Certainly, we made mistakes along the way, but it's definitely within the business it's seen as the kind of way forward for working. We learnt that customer testing trumps all, something, as I mentioned before, that we probably in the past could be accused of kind of playing lip service to as we kind of drive forward to roll out a project. We also learned working together that true collaboration isn't kind of soft and fuzzy. There's friction and there's conflict. But as long as there's kind of trust and you believe in what you're doing and you give a damn about what you're doing, then eventually you'll find consensus and build something that works. And lastly, I'd say this is specific maybe to Heineken, but that it's okay to use technology to kind of augment the face-to-face relationship between customer and sales. So that's okay, that this kind of drive for digital change doesn't mean that you need to erode the kind of face-to-face contact that sales have with their customers.
Yeah, I think that's important, because how many times do you hear that people have got app fatigue or website fatigue? People are building products just for the sake of it. It's a good one. And yeah, above and beyond everything, user testing is king. It's a tool to overcome all of the nonsense, bureaucracy, just noise from both sides of our businesses. Because once you've got that evidential proof, it's really hard to dispute. It's hard for stakeholders, management, business to dispute. And it's not an inconvenience. It's not another agile process that you can just get rid of because it takes time and we just want to get on with building. It is a tool and reassurance that you're actually building the right thing, or in our case, building the wrong thing, which is also a good learning. I guess it just depends on whether you're willing to do the right thing with the findings and whether you have the courage to make that change. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.